I love me a good puzzle. Whether it be puzzle video games like Tetris or Portal, or more traditional puzzles like Sudoku or a classic puzzle box, I'm down to give it a shot. To that end, I'm also a fan of Picross, and Mediatonic's latest game, Murder by Numbers, looks to satisfy that Picross craving, with a healthy dose of visual novelization and point-and-click gameplay to boot. So is Murder by Numbers worth further examination? Let's find out. As a disclaimer, I am friends with somebody who works at Mediatonic. However, this video is not sponsored by Mediatonic, the content within is not being screened nor approved by Mediatonic, she did not work on this particular game, and even if she did, all the opinions expressed in this video would still be completely my own. And of course, before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified whenever I upload new videos. You can even check out my other videos, including my dedicated reviews playlist. Thanks. Now let's begin. This review and the related footage is based on a digital retail copy of the game for the Nintendo Switch. Murder by Numbers follows Honor Mizrahi, a 90s-era silver screen actress who stumbles her way into becoming a private eye. Along for the ride is her new friend Scout, an artificial intelligence robot that is inexplicably hyper-advanced for 2020 standards, let alone 1996. Together, they find clues, solve puzzles, and fight crime, all en route to discovering Scout's lost origins. It's a very vivid game, full of colorful characters and glitzy backdrops, and there's a consistent campiness that is pervasive. Some characters and narrative beats tend to fall into the well-worn tropes of procedural dramas and crime shows. However, the story as a whole is still entertaining and consistently leaves enough intrigue to draw players in and make them press onwards to see what happens next. As detective stories go, Murder by Numbers is fairly by the book, but it's still interesting enough to follow through to the end. The game's visual style does a lot of the heavy lifting in selling the game's vibrancy. It's very charming with just the right amount of 90s flair and fashion infused throughout. Much like other visual novels, Murder by Numbers relies heavily on limited animation. This isn't really a problem, and even if it is, it's alleviated by the expressiveness of every character's various poses. Don't get me wrong, the animation is very minimal, even less than something like Ace Attorney. But there's still a charm to the animation that is present, and major story beats are usually accompanied by full-screen art pieces to make them really stand out. While I wasn't blown away by anything I saw, I still thought everything that was present was good. On a side note, I recently watched a great video by New Frame Plus that covers limited animation. I highly recommend watching that video as well. On top of being educational and entertaining, it also gives a greater appreciation for how games like Ace Attorney and Murder by Numbers use limited animation to maximum effect. Speaking of Ace Attorney, the game's soundtrack was composed by none other than Ace Attorney's own Masakazu Sugimori. The score successfully blends the upbeat socialite aesthetic of the protagonists with the seedier atmosphere of the crimes at hand, with the underlying intonation of the private eye genre itself. I really like this soundtrack, and the music may very well be the best part of the entire game. The gameplay is really going to be the make or break aspect of the game for most people. As mentioned previously, Murder by Numbers' primary gameplay mechanic is Picross puzzles. If you're unfamiliar with Picross, Picross is a picture logic puzzle. Every puzzle is a graph composed of a number of rows and columns, and each column and row is labeled with numbers. The numbers indicate how many squares in that graph, column, or row will be filled to complete the overall picture. The puzzle is figuring out which squares are filled in and which are left blank. Each time you solve a puzzle, that picture gets added to your inventory to use as evidence in your investigation. It's a very clever way to meld the imagery aspect of Picross with the point-and-click aspect of an adventure/detective game. There are also some segments that are timed, requiring players to solve a number of consecutive basic Picross puzzles. The puzzles start off simple enough to pick up and try, but as the game enters the later stages, it gets pretty tough. To balance that out, Murder by Numbers includes a couple of difficulty settings and a few different assists. During a puzzle, you can hit the minus button to open up the assist menu. Here you can choose to show hints, which highlights where you have some possible moves. You can choose to fill in 5 random squares of the picture, and you can find and highlight any mistakes that you've made. Checking for errors and filling random squares will lower your score if used. While I didn't use any of the assists myself, I'm glad they're available to make the game more accessible. As a fan of Picross, I really enjoyed the core gameplay. If you've never played Picross, this is a very fun and interesting way to get into it. However, here is the proverbial line in the sand. If you already don't like Picross, you probably won't enjoy the gameplay. You may still enjoy the detective aspects of the game, but you'll still have to do all the Picross puzzles, and since these two different systems are thoroughly intertwined, you won't be able to experience one without the other. I enjoy Picross, so I have no real complaints with the gameplay content. However, if you're on the fence about Picross, I'd recommend doing a little research beforehand. Murder by Numbers is a really cool game. It's bursting with creativity and charm, adeptly combining the visual aspect of Picross with the core mechanics of a detective game, all through the presentation of a visual novel. It's highly evocative of the Ace Attorney series, right down to having Ace Attorney's composer score this game as well. However, it's a little harder to recommend this game even to fans of Ace Attorney simply due to the nature of the core mechanics. While I can't recommend this game to everybody, I still thoroughly enjoyed it myself. For anybody that also likes Picross or is willing to pick it up and give it a try, this is one to check out. Murder by Numbers on Nintendo Switch earns a 7.8 out of 10. Once again, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to get notifications whenever I post new videos, and be sure to check out the content up on screen. Thanks!